Well, let's hop right into it. Today, what we want to cover are two things. The first is in reference to a low ball offer, some reasons why we get them, and then two, some ways to treat it. I mean, it's almost like I'm a dermatologist talking to a teenager. Here's how you get acne. Here's some reasons why, and here's how you fix it. So, with that example in mind, let's dive right into why we get low balls. And so, the first reason is it's just demographics. Our first time buyers, I saw a stat last week. The average age of the first time buyer is between 37 and 38 years old. That stunned me. I've been in the business 16 years. I can remember my own personal experience around 23 buying my first home. And that seemed from my peer group about right. Somewhere between 22 and 25, you'd buy your first home. Well, this group of buyers coming up, they've had to scrimp, save, fight, throw money away with rent for at least more than a decade longer than prior generations. And so as a result of that, man, they squeeze in them pennies. If you had to save up for something 10 years versus just a couple of weeks, you'd probably put, every probably penny would probably count too. So you can't really blame them when in most things in life, if you consider it from the other party's perspective. You don't necessarily agree with them. You're not going to give your home away, but you can at least understand where it's coming from, and that'll help us formulate our response. So the first reason why we get them is just the average first-time buyer is older. If you have a resale home, the average age of buyers in general in the United States last year was 56 years old. So quite a lot more than what we've dealt with. So the second reason why we get lowball offers is just the media. If you watch the news, I mean, everything is negative because, blood draws eyeballs, so is what they used to say, and negative sells. They don't want to tell you about the 5,000 jets that landed safely yesterday. They want to tell you about the one that almost crashed. And so that's just kind of human nature. And so with these mobile devices, we're bombarded with media, negativity, nonstop. I mean, you go on Twitter, and everyone out there is talking about, oh, the housing market's going to crash, pennies on the dollar. And, it's a natural human thing to kind of pay attention to that, And so the third reason why we get these lowball offers is just friends and family. Again, because of social media, there's a lot more, not necessarily decision makers, but decision influencers out there. In the old days, prior to social media, the first time people would find out you and the missus bought a house was when you went to Sunday school and told everyone, hey, the Christmas party next week, we got a new address here. And so now people get their friends, family, and Facebook acquaintances and whatnot all giving them advice. And you can imagine how overwhelming that can do. And finally, reason we get lowball offers is they work from time to time. So there are investors that will make 18 offers in the hopes of two sticking. And when those two stick, they make quite a bit of money off of it. And so now that you kind of understand the source of these lowball offers, we can work on a solution. So the solution will be couched toward the seller's perspective. So, the first thing we do with a lowball offer when we get it is just, define if it actually is a lowball offer or not. So if your house has been on the market half a year and the offers 2 or 3% below the asking price with some closing cost assistance, that might not be a lowball offer. That might be close to market value. And so the first thing we do once we determine it is a lowball offer is just pause. Take a deep breath. Nothing good comes in as both a listing agent and a buyer's agent. I've been on both sides of this transaction. And so when this offer comes in, a seller will have a knee-jerk reaction like, tell them to take it and shove it. Well, I mean, what does that do when you call the agent back and say, hey, Bob, guess what? Take it and shove it, And so there's a time and place and everything, but that's not really a good time and place. So what we want to do is just pause. And it's a natural human emotion to get upset because when you list your house or condo for $750,000, mentally you start spending that $750,000. When that offer comes in at $575, you're like, whoa, Nelly, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna pay all these bills if I'm getting $575? It's just not gonna work. And so we pause, you know. And then two, I encourage you to resist the temptation just to outright summarily reject a lowball offer. And I'll tell you why. I see plenty of these lowball offers end up at the closing table with happy parties on both sides 30, 45 days down the road. Not necessarily at that initial price, but if you reject it, that buyer's liable to get his or her marbles and just move on down the road a little bit. And so there's no such thing as an insulting offer. The only insulting offer is the one that's not written. A potential buyer took the time, effort, and energy to write an offer, sign all the disclosures, send it over to you, or his or her agent did. And so let's honor that and let's try to get it together. So the next thing we do is we formulate a counter and avoid the toddler two-step. So, you push a toddler, that toddler's liable to push you back until one of you starts crying and goes and tells the teacher. Let's don't do that. Have your agent, in this case me, if it's Destin, Florida, do a new comparative market analysis. And I try to keep my sellers up to date, and every couple of weeks I'll do one of these anyway, but that's not, so it's normally not necessary, but make sure we want to have the most recent data possible. And let's see what market value really is. Is that number we're at still a good number? Do we need to come down a little bit? Do we need to offer some concessions? And make a strong counteroffer. Well, Doug, why should I do that? They made a stupid offer. Your goal, the only time you need to be writing this, Mr. Seller, is at that closing table in about 4 weeks. And so what we do is we come up with a strong counter that still meets your needs, but gives the buyer some incentive to come up. And you would be surprised how quickly they can come up and will come up. So, maybe that offer was $50,000 under the asking price, you counter. Now all of a sudden they don't take it, but we're $7,000 apart. Isn't $7,000 a lot less than $50,000 apart? And so we just did that by one volley. So, and 9 times out of 10, they do end up working out. So come up with a counter. Let's do this by avoiding the toddler syndrome. We'll do a new CMA, make sure we get it, and then volley it back and forth. And if we can't come to terms, have your agent, in this case me, break it up on good terms. So I'll call the buyer's agent and say, look, my seller's at $743,000. That's where we're at right now. We want to thank you and the buyer for your effort in this. If they look around and they can't find anything that meets their needs, bring it back to us. I've delivered that message before, and the buyer's agent called me back the next morning and said, Doug, they slept on it. They're going to take it. See you in 30 days. So, a lowball offer doesn't have to be a bad thing. Again, just remember, any offer you get is a compliment. Get with your agent, in this case me, if you're on the Destin coast, to walk you through this step by step. Look, if you got some value out of this real brief video, hit that like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with the latest content we put out. If you need to buy or sell real estate anywhere along the Emerald Coast of Florida, Doug Rogers, Remax Coastal Properties. If you need a referral, you need a great agent like myself in another part of the country. I've been doing this 16 years. I know people pretty much all over. So, I can hook you up at no cost to an agent in a different neck of the woods. And so with that being said, thank you for your attention and make it a great day.